If you're listening to this right now, it's not a coincidence. Something within you is ready to shift. A deeper part of you already knows that you don't need to chase, beg, or convince anyone to love you. The moment you stop reaching outward and begin shifting inward, everything begins to change. This isn't about pretending or playing games. It's about stepping into a version of yourself that already exists. The version that is loved, remembered, valued, and chosen. The version of you that already lives in their heart. Take a breath and imagine if you were already in their heart, if you were already seen and cherished the way you desire, what would change within you? How would you think? How would you speak? How would you carry yourself? This is the space Neville Goddard calls us to live from. Not from longing, not from lack, but from quiet certainty. Not from trying to get, but from inner knowing that it's already yours. Neville Goddard taught a principle that's as simple as it is transformative. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, not just to believe it, not to wait for signs, but to live in the assumption that what you desire is already real. This changes everything, especially when it comes to love and relationships. We often wait for confirmation, waiting for the message, the approval, the affection. We say, once they show me they care, then I'll feel good enough. Then I'll feel confident. But Neville reverses that. He teaches, feel it first, and the world will mirror it back. When you act as if you are already in their heart, you're not chasing a connection. You're aligning with it. You begin walking, speaking, and showing up from a place of completion. You no longer ask, do they love me? Instead, you begin to think, of course I'm loved. That love already exists. This isn't arrogance, it's faith. It's inner stability. You're not faking it. You're remembering the truth you were once too unsure to accept. This isn't about controlling anyone. It's not about trying to manipulate outcomes. It's about changing how you show up in the world. Because everything flows from self-concept. When you believe you are worthy, the world begins to treat you that way. When you believe you are already loved, you stop grasping, and love flows to you more naturally. Neville said, change your conception of yourself and you will automatically change the world in which you live. That's the secret. It all begins with how you see you. So ask yourself honestly, are you someone waiting to be chosen? Or someone already walking as if they're cherished? When you make this inner shift, everything around you begins to shift too. You stop doubting. You stop replaying old fears. You stop chasing people who weren't meant to stay. And something incredible happens. You become magnetic. Not because you're trying to get attention, but because you've stopped seeking and started radiating. You're no longer reaching out from emptiness. You're grounded in the fullness of knowing who you already are. This is what it means to act as if. You don't have to pretend to feel something fake. You just have to live from the end, from the version of you who already has what they longed for. You start to feel what it's like to be chosen, appreciated, remembered, right now. And the more you do it, the more natural it feels. Eventually, you don't have to force it. It becomes who you are. You become the one who is already in their heart, not because they told you, but because you decided it was already true. And the world, it catches up to your belief, not because you forced it, but because you finally became it. So take a moment. Imagine the version of you that no longer waits, doubts, or begs for love. Imagine the one who walks in peace, in confidence, in quiet certainty. That version of you is real. Begin to live from that version today. Everything in your life begins not with outer action, but with inner identity. Neville Goddard emphasized this again and again. We do not manifest by manipulating the outside world. We manifest by shifting who we believe we are. Most people spend their lives reacting to appearances. They try to fix what they see. They try to change others, prove themselves, or win approval. But all of that is effort in the wrong direction. You don't need to fix your environment. you need to revise your self-concept. The moment you begin to believe that you are already loved, chosen, and secure in someone's heart, everything around you begins to align with that belief. We are conditioned to wait for evidence before we believe. We say, I'll feel confident when they show me affection. I'll feel loved when they finally come back. I'll believe I matter once someone treats me like I do. But that's backward. Neville teaches us to flip the order. Belief comes first. The state comes first. Identity comes first. Identity comes first. If you want to be in someone's heart, start being the version of you who already is. Ask yourself, if this desire was already fulfilled, how would I feel? How would I carry myself? What would I no longer worry about? Let that version of you take the lead. When you become that person internally, your outer world has no choice but to reflect it. The outer world is a mirror. It is shaped by your inner assumptions. And that brings us to a deeper truth. Neville revealed, your inner conversations are creating your outer relationships. We speak to ourselves all day long, silently, repeatedly. And most of us don't realize the power of those silent conversations. If you're constantly thinking thoughts like, they don't care about me, they probably forgot me, I'll never be enough for them, then those thoughts form the emotional blueprint of your life. You may never say them out loud, but they echo through your energy, your presence, your choices. Neville said, all that you behold, or it appears without, it is within, in your imagination. This means that every dialogue you repeat within your own mind becomes a seed that blossoms into experience. If your internal story is one of rejection, fear, or absence, then even if someone reaches out to you, you may push them away unconsciously or interpret their actions through a lens of fear. On the other hand, when your internal dialogue is rooted in love, in security, in quiet confidence, you begin to respond differently to everything around you. You no longer look for signs of rejection. You expect signs of closeness. You stop fearing loss and start living from emotional abundance. So begin to monitor your inner speech. What are you saying to yourself when you think about them? Are you imagining them drifting away from you or toward you? Are you imagining being forgotten or being deeply remembered? The shift starts here. You must take ownership of your inner story. Start to gently revise it. Instead of replaying painful scenes in your head, begin creating new ones. Imagine them thinking about you. Imagine them smiling when your name comes up. Imagine being spoken of with warmth, not distance. This is not fantasy. It's creative discipline. Neville wasn't asking us to escape reality. He was showing us how to reshape it. He taught that your imagination is not separate from reality. It is the root of it. And when you fill your inner world with loving assumptions, eventually the outer world will respond in kind, not instantly, not always exactly how you expect, but consistently. This is the hidden power most people never realize they have. You don't need anyone to validate your worth. You don't need to beg for affection. All you need is the courage to live from a new state of mind, from the calm, secure belief that it is already done, that you are already remembered, already appreciated, already in the heart of the one you care about. And as you persist in that inner conviction, the circumstances around you begin to reorganize. When you understand this, the question is no longer, how do I get them to love me? The real question becomes, how do I treat myself when I already know I am loved? And from that place, you start to act differently. You speak with more calmness. You stop over analyzing every message or silence. You no longer act from fear. You act from knowing, and that knowing carries a power that's more attractive than any tactic or strategy. You don't need to force what's meant to flow. When your inner identity shifts, the people, moments, and situations that match it begin to arrive. Not because you chased them, but because you finally became the person who no longer needed to. One of Neville Goddard's most profound truths is this: feeling is the secret. It's not the words you say, the affirmations you repeat, or the hours you spend visualizing. It's the feeling behind those thoughts that creates your reality. You can repeat 1,000 times, they love me, they love me. But if your heart still carries doubt, fear, or desperation, those are the signals that shape your experience. Because it's never about surface words. It's always about emotional alignment. You attract not what you say, but what you are emotionally convinced of. So the real practice is not in forcing anything outside of you to happen. It's in building the emotional reality inside yourself first. If you were already in their heart, how would it feel? Would there be tension, anxiety, or insecurity? No, there would be peace, warmth, relief, a deep sense of being seen, held, and remembered. That's the feeling you need to live in, not one day, but every day. That feeling becomes your new home, your new natural state. And the more real it feels to you internally, the more life begins to reflect it externally. The world doesn't change, and then you feel secure. You feel secure, and then the world changes. That's the key most people miss. They wait for the message to come, for the relationship to shift, for the apology or the confession of love. But Neville's teachings remind us that we don't wait for circumstances, we create them through persistent inner feeling. It's not magic, it's not superstition, it's alignment. It's a shift in the lens through which you view reality. And when your emotional lens says, I am already loved, your actions, energy, and presence carry that truth everywhere you go. And that brings us to one of the most empowering decisions you can ever make. Don't wait. Be that version now, right now. Not when they call, not when things finally happen, not when you get closure. Now, because there's no value in postponing your peace, your confidence, your joy. You don't need to wait for anyone else to change for you to feel whole. You don't need to be chosen to feel worthy. You are already worthy. And when you step into that identity, life starts responding in beautiful, subtle, and powerful ways. Think of the version of you who is already in their heart. What does that version do when they wake up? How do they respond to silence or distance? How do they carry themselves in the world? Do they question their value with every missed call or unread message? Or do they move forward with the quiet, steady certainty that they are already remembered, already loved? That version doesn't overthink. That version doesn't shrink in fear. That version trusts. You don't need evidence to act from that place. You need faith. You need willingness. And most importantly, you need consistency. Living in the state of the wish fulfilled isn't a one-time visualization. It's a decision you return to every moment. When doubt creeps in, you gently return to the feeling. When fear whispers, you breathe and shift. When the old identity wants to take over, you remind yourself, that's not me anymore. I've stepped into a new story. Being that version now means showing up in alignment with what you want, not reacting from what you fear. It means choosing thoughts that support you, speaking words that uplift you, and holding energy that honors you. This is not about ignoring reality. It's about choosing to live from the deeper truth, the one you believe in, even before it appears. Because your life always bends in the direction of your dominant emotional state. That's why the feeling matters more than any action. That's why you don't wait. You are not incomplete. You are not invisible. You are not lacking. You've just been conditioned to seek outside of yourself what was always meant to be felt within. But now you know better. Now you've been reminded of your own power. You don't have to chase love. You don't have to beg for attention. You can return to the truth. I am already in their heart. I already matter. I already belong. And when you start showing up as that version of yourself, the world can't help but notice, because you'll no longer be asking for love, you'll be radiating it. There's a subtle but life-changing shift that happens when you move from seeking love to radiating love. And once you make that shift, everything changes, not only in your relationships, but in your energy, your confidence, your peace. Most people spend their lives searching for someone to choose them. to make them feel whole, to give them validation. But when you're always seeking, you're also silently declaring to yourself, I don't have it yet. I'm incomplete. I need something outside of me to feel fulfilled. Neville Goddard would tell you that's the wrong starting point. If you begin from a place of emptiness, you can only attract more lack. But the moment you start from fullness, when you stop trying to get love and start embodying it, you become magnetic. Radiance is not about trying harder. It's not about proving your worth. It's the natural glow that emerges when you stop questioning it. When you stop waiting for someone to reflect back your value and you start owning it silently without needing approval. That's the power of radiating love from within. Think about this deeply. If you were already in their heart, truly, how would your energy shift? You wouldn't obsess. You wouldn't doubt yourself. You wouldn't beg for attention. You'd walk through your day with a quiet ease. You'd smile more. You'd breathe deeper. You'd stop replaying painful scenarios in your head because you'd know it's already done. You're already chosen. That's what it feels like when you radiate instead of seek. That's what it means to live in the end. You're not ignoring reality. You're choosing to lead it. Radiance doesn't come from forcing confidence. It comes from feeling secure in who you are, from holding the belief, even in silence, that you are worthy of deep, lasting connection. And when you carry that belief, even without saying a word, people sense it. Your presence changes. You no longer chase energy that doesn't match yours. You no longer shrink to fit someone else's comfort. You simply walk with the calm understanding that what's meant for you is already aligning, and you don't need to earn what is already yours. This shift from seeking to radiating is not just about relationships. It's about every area of your life. But in love especially, it's powerful because the world mirrors how you feel about yourself. And that brings us directly to the foundation, Neville. Goddard emphasized repeatedly your self-concept. Your self-concept is the silent architect of your life. It's the identity you hold deep within, how you see yourself when no one's watching. You can't escape it. No affirmation or visualization can override a poor self-concept. If you continue to identify with being unwanted, unchosen, or not enough, you can try every method in the world, but if your self-concept is rooted in lack, the results will always fall short. That's why Neville didn't just teach imagination. He taught the discipline of identity, the daily choice to see yourself in a new light, to live as the person who is already living their desired reality. So ask yourself honestly, who are you being, emotionally and mentally, each day? Are you still walking around with a story that says, I'm never enough, they always leave, I'm too late, I'm forgotten? Or have you begun to write a new narrative, one that says, I am worthy, I am already chosen, I am remembered even in silence, I am loved even when it's unseen? This is where the true work begins, not with chasing people, but with reprogramming the way you see yourself. Neville said, you are already that which you want to be, and your refusal to believe this is the only reason you do not see it. Let that sink in. You are already the version of yourself that belongs in their hearts. But if you keep identifying with the old version, rejected, anxious, unsure, you'll keep recreating the same emotional patterns. When your self-concept becomes strong, clear, and secure, you no longer tolerate crumbs. You no longer chase shadows. You stop needing constant proof from others because your belief becomes its own confirmation. Your self-concept is the source of your energy. It defines your standards. It decides who and what you attract. And when your self-concept is rooted in love, confidence, and quiet dignity, you don't just attract love, you command it without saying a word, not through manipulation, but through alignment, not through noise, but through presence. So today, begin to revise the story you tell about yourself, even if it feels unnatural at first. Even if the old patterns try to creep back in, keep choosing the identity that reflects the reality you want, not the one you fear. Because once you truly change how you see yourself, everything else must follow. Here's what separates those who merely wish for love from those who truly manifest it: persistence in the assumption. Neville Goddard was clear on this. Your first assumption sets the direction, but it is the persistence that carries it to fulfillment. It's easy to believe something in a moment of hope or excitement. It's easy to feel confident for a day after visualizing or affirming. But what happens when reality doesn't change immediately? What happens when doubt creeps in, or when you feel ignored, forgotten, or misunderstood? That's the real test. Most people abandon the state too early. They let the current circumstances overpower the new inner reality they've just begun to build. They let silence speak louder than belief. But Neville said, if you do not believe that you are what you want to be, then you remain as you are. The shift happens only when you persist in your new assumption, regardless of what you see around you. You can't wait for confirmation. You must become confirmation. You hold to the assumption as if it were already a fact. You return to it every time your mind tries to wander into fear. You choose it again and again until it becomes more natural than the doubt you used to live in. Think of it like planting a seed. You don't dig it up every day to see if it's growing. You trust the process, even though you can't see it with your physical eyes. That's exactly how assumptions work. They must be nourished with faith, repeated gently in the mind, and felt emotionally, especially when nothing seems to be changing. The moment you give up on your assumption because the outside world hasn't caught up, you interrupt the process. But when you persist, even in the silence, especially in the silence, that's when the shift becomes real. Let them take time. Let them be silent. Let the outer world lag behind a little. It always does. But you don't stop. You hold your inner ground. You walk through the world with the conviction that your desire is already real, and you treat every delay as a test of strength, not a denial of truth. And here's what you must understand next. Letting go of control doesn't mean letting go of belief. It means stepping out of mental force and stepping into inner faith. Neville never said to obsess, to overthink, or to constantly check reality for signs. In fact, he taught the opposite. He taught rest. He taught calm inner certainty. He taught surrender not to doubt, but to the process. You don't need to control how it happens. You just need to assume it already has. Letting go of control is not weakness. It's wisdom. When you act like you're already in their heart, there is no longer a need to obsess over details. You don't chase, you don't analyze every delay. You don't need constant reassurance. Why? Because deep inside, you've already claimed it. You've accepted the end result. You've chosen to believe, not because of what you see, but because of who you've decided to be. Letting go of control means allowing the world to rearrange itself around your new identity. It means trusting that the same power that gave you the desire also knows how to bring it to fulfillment. You don't need to plan every step or understand every turn. Your job is to feel it real, to dwell in the emotional state of the fulfilled desire and let the rest unfold. This trust gives you freedom. You no longer react to every external movement. You no longer let the behavior of another person dictate your worth or direction. You operate from inner calm. You stay faithful to your assumption, not because things always go your way, but because you've decided that nothing can shake the state you now live in. You walk with quiet certainty, even if the world hasn't caught up yet. And eventually it does. You'll start to notice small shifts, unexpected moments, new dynamics, reflections of the state you've been persisting in. But they won't shake you because you're not waiting anymore. You're living it, and that is when the assumption becomes reality. That's when what was once imagined becomes part of your world. Not by chasing, not by controlling, but by persisting and trusting. This is the way of transformation. This is the way of alignment. This is the way of becoming what you desire. until the world has no choice but to reflect it back. When you begin to shift your inner world, when you truly start to live from the state of being in their heart, things on the outside may not change instantly. But make no mistake, the shift has begun. Neville always reminded us that reality takes the shape of our persistent inner assumptions. And just like a seed planted in soil, change often begins invisibly. The first signs are subtle, barely noticeable to the untrained eye. A sudden calm in your mind, a moment of peace in your heart where fear once lived, a change in how someone looks at you, a shift in their tone, a small but meaningful gesture. These aren't coincidences. These are ripples from the inner transformation you've already made. At first, it's easy to overlook these signs because they seem too small to matter. But that's where so many people go wrong. They dismiss the subtle because they're still attached to the dramatic. They want loud, unmistakable evidence. But Neville taught that consciousness is the only reality. When your inner world changes, the outer world must follow, even if it begins quietly. Don't underestimate these early shifts. They are signs that your new assumption is taking root. You might notice people begin to treat you differently. You may suddenly stop feeling anxious in situations that used to trigger you. You may even feel as if the person you once obsessed over is now coming closer without you doing anything. These aren't accidents. These are the natural consequences of your new identity. Because once you've assumed the feeling of being loved, remembered, chosen, life cannot help but adjust itself around that belief. And what once felt far away begins to feel natural. You stop craving love and start living from it. But here's the truth. Even with signs and progress, your old thoughts may still try to return. That's why living in the end is not a one-time decision. It's a daily commitment. And that brings us to one of the most important keys of all, the daily practice of staying in the state. The mind is like a garden. Whatever you water grows. If you neglect your inner world, old fears and doubts start creeping back in, like weeds. That's why it's not enough to just feel it once. You must keep choosing the state of the fulfilled desire. Every morning, every evening, every quiet moment in between. The repetition is not weakness, it's reinforcement. And the stronger the repetition, the more natural your new state becomes. So how do you stay in that state? You make it part of your routine. You wake up and speak to yourself with kindness. Today I walk in love. Today I am already in their heart. You take a few minutes to visualize, not to force outcomes, but to feel what it's like to be remembered, respected, and deeply valued. Not from fantasy, but from inner experience. You journal as if it's already done. You write in the past tense. I remember when I used to worry. Now everything feels peaceful. I remember when I used to wonder if they cared. Now I feel it without question. Throughout your day, you learn to return to the state even during challenges. When silence comes, you don't panic. You breathe. When fear knocks, you don't answer. You pause, you say, that's not me anymore. I've stepped into a new story. Your imagination becomes your anchor. Your self-concept becomes your compass. And gradually, your nervous system adjusts to peace. Your emotions stabilize. You stop reacting to external triggers and start responding from the end state you've already chosen. The key is not perfection, it's persistence. You will have moments of doubt. You will feel pulled back into old patterns. That's okay. What matters is that you notice it and then return to the state. Return to the version of you who is already in their heart. This version of you doesn't need to chase or worry. This version already lives in love, already walks in confidence, already trusts the process. By practicing this state daily, it eventually becomes second nature. You no longer need to force the feeling. It becomes your emotional home. You stop asking, where is it? And start living as if it's already here. And when you reach that point, when the inner feeling becomes dominant, the outer world no longer has power over you, because you become the cause not the effect. And from that position, manifestation isn't something you try to do. It's something that flows from who you are. Everything you've been hoping to feel, security, connection, love, peace, it's not waiting for you somewhere far away. It's already within you. It's available the moment you stop living from the past and step fully into the state of your fulfilled desire. Neville Goddard's teachings weren't about pretending or forcing. They were about becoming the version of yourself that already lives in the reality you long for. And the truth is, once you become that version, the world adjusts. The people around you feel it. Your energy shifts, your decisions change, and life begins to mirror back your inner transformation. So now you stand at a choice point. You can continue to live from the old identity, chasing, doubting, reacting, or you can make the bold decision to step into the end, to act as if you are already in their heart, not because you're trying to make something happen, but because you finally realized you don't need to prove anything to anyone. You are already loved. You are already seen. You are already chosen. When you walk from that place, something powerful happens. You begin to lead your reality instead of being led by it. You've learned now how your inner world creates your outer experiences. You've seen that your self-concept is the blueprint, and that every relationship, every reaction is simply reflecting back what you believe about yourself. So choose to believe something higher. Choose to believe something kinder. Make your inner dialogue loving. Make your assumptions peaceful. Treat yourself as someone who is deeply worthy, not because of how others respond, but because of who you decide to be. And remember, you don't need permission to change your story. You don't need confirmation to believe you matter. You just need courage. The courage to persist in the unseen, the strength to trust your new identity, and the patience to watch it unfold. What begins in the mind grows through feeling and arrives in the world when the time is right. You're not here to chase anything. You're here to become everything. So begin now. Speak differently. Think differently. Walk differently. Every moment is a chance to return to the version of you who is already loved, who is already aligned, who already has what they desire. Don't wait another day to live from that truth. Begin now. If this message spoke to you, if it helped shift something within you, then support this journey by liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and sharing it with someone who needs to hear it. Your new story has already begun. Now, live like it's already yours.